Good morning, Vietnam. YouTube animated stories will be a recurring theme for me, but I just wanted to say I don't hate the people who make these god-awful videos. That much. I mainly hate the malicious skank protagonists who learn morals from Ted Bundy. But with that being said, let's get into this. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Play it.
Have you ever done something truly evil and destroyed someone's whole life?
Every day.
Well, I have. I was
Nice.
19 and about to graduate from high school. But then my math
Boo.
teacher, Mr. Cumberbatch, told me I'd failed his class and would have to repeat the year.
Haha,
I
you
was
suck.
devastated because I had already made plans to go to college. So I started
Nice.
crying and
Whenever something happens that I don't like, I just start crying or screaming.
begged him to show mercy and let me pass. But he said no and shook his
Too bad,
head.
too
In a
sad.
last attempt, I gave him a big hug and said, "Please, Mr. Cumberbatch,
No touchy.
isn't there anything I can do?" He pushed me away and said,
Nah, bitch, you suck.
but I showed persistence and kept
Oh
begging
god,
him,
don't
saying,
be on that level.
"Please, please, please, Mr. Cumberbatch, isn't there anything I can do for you?" Finally, he had a change of heart and wrote down an address on a paper and said,
What?
"Okay, come here on Saturday, 6 p.m. We will do some math exercises, and if you do well, I will change your grade and let you pass." I gave
that's
him one
nice.
last hug and said, "Thank you, Mr. Cumberbatch. You are the best."
That name sucks.
When Saturday arrived, I was very nervous. I didn't know if I was going on a date or if I was getting a private math lesson.
Please be the
But
second
just
one.
to be sure, I dressed myself up. I
Oh,
put on
God.
my old school uniform, but made a few changes to look as exciting
Ow.
as possible.
No.
When I arrived at his house, he opened the door and said, "Come in, you're looking gorgeous today."
Come in. I won't hurt you. Ouch.
I responded with,
Drop those pants.
"Oh."
Whore.
We sat down at a desk and he told me to solve some math problems.
Thank
I
God.
couldn't focus.
Oh
Mr. Cumberbatch was so close to me and I realized how attractive he was.
God.
I mean, I was 19 and he was only 10 years older than me. What turned
Ooh,
me on the
10 years.
most was the authority he had over me. He could decide whether I would pass the year or repeat it. At one point,
Wow.
I just stared into his eyes and hoped he would kiss me. But I guess
No.
he was too nervous. So instead, I kissed him.
Oh,
and
God.
he liked it. Kissing my high school teacher wasn't technically illegal,
What did you say, nigga?
but we still broke the rules of our school. A
Oh, God.
teacher-student relationship was strictly prohibited, but that's what made
should
it so
be.
exciting. When we
Oh,
said
God.
goodbye to each other, I asked him if I had studied enough to pass the year, and he said,
Not at all, you stupid ass bitch. Oh, God.
I said, "Thank you, Mr. Cumberbatch," and gave him one more kiss
Oh,
on
no.
his mouth. This might shock you, but it was my first time.
Oh,
and
no.
because of my inexperience, I forgot to tell him to use protection.
Oh,
So
God.
2 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant.
Whore.
I didn't mind though, because I really liked Mr. Cumberbatch.
Oh, yeah.
The next day, I went up
Bitch.
to him at school to tell him about the baby. I secretly hoped we would become a couple. But when he heard the news, he got angry and said,
Did you know that at least 75% of bitches suffer from some kind of hearing loss?
I didn't like the way he talked to me. This
Oh.
was my body and therefore my decision.
No, it's not.
I asked him if he was interested in raising the baby with me. But he
May
freaked
Allah
out
have
and
mercy on
screamed,
your soul.
"I already have a wife and kid. I'll never take care of your stupid baby. Go to the
Savage.
pharmacy right now." I screamed back, "You're married?" And he said, "Of course. And don't act like you didn't know. All my students know I have a wife and kid." Wow, what a jerk.
Yeah.
Not only did he betray his wife, but now he was trying to put the blame on me.
Yeah,
I
you're a
got angry
victim.
and said, "I will keep the baby and tell your wife what you did." That's when he almost had a seizure and
Savage.
screamed right at me, "You won't do that!" But then I had an idea. I knew I would keep the baby anyway, but at least I could pretend to make a deal with him. I said, "If you turn all my grades into straight A's, then I will change my mind on the baby." Mr. Cumberbatch was desperate. He agreed to the deal and snuck into our school at night
At night.
to change my grades on the principal's
just walk in.
computer. But 2 days later, on my graduation day, things went wrong. When my
Nice.
principal handed over my report card, he took a quick look at it and said, "There must have been a mistake." I immediately knew my plan had failed, and the next day I got my real report card, and my grades were terrible. The only
Ha.
A I got was in Mr. Cumberbatch's math class. I knew it wasn't his fault, but I was so angry, I found out his address and went to his house. I knew it wasn't his fault.
Oh, fuck.
A woman opened the door, and she was pregnant too. I asked her if she
Damn.
was the wife of Mr. Cumberbatch, and she said yes. Then Mr. Cumberbatch appeared next to her. He stared at me in a very threatening way. For a moment, I had doubts, but then I looked straight into her eyes and said, "Your husband got me pregnant, and he has no interest in taking responsibility for his mistake." I hoped she would get angry at her husband, but instead she got angry at me, screaming,
The hell?
"Bitch! You seduced my husband,
Yeah,
you
bitch."
dirty bitch!" Wow, if Mr. Cumberbatch hadn't held her back from me, I might not be alive today. I
Oh,
was
of
shocked and
course.
went back home, but it got worse. The next day, she came to my house and used a golf club to break through a window. My parents weren't at home to
What the
protect
fuck?
me, so I fled to the rooftop and called the police.
Yes.
They arrived in time.
You're telling me the one time the police actually shows up on time, it's for this bitch? You have to be kidding me.
And took Mrs. Cumberbatch into custody. 2
Karen.
weeks later, she was sentenced to 24 months in prison.
When you go to prison, the most important thing in your life is going to be booty.
Nice.
But this story gets even crazier.
Please no.
I called
How?
up Mr. Cumberbatch and told him we needed to talk. We met at a restaurant and I asked him, "How much child support will you pay me each month?"
Child support? Hell no.
He
Nothing.
responded, "I'm only a teacher. I don't make much money."
I only
But I
make
asked
200 grand a
again.
week.
"How much child support are you going to pay me?" He said, "Look, my pregnant wife is in prison and we both know she is insane. I will divorce her as soon as possible and I'd like you to come live with me."
Yes, because my wife's the one who's crazy. Speaking of which, 19-year-old girl, please, let's go get married. I love you. Just kidding.
"It will be
Bitch.
the best for both you and the baby." I immediately said yes because I was scared
Scumbag.
of being a single mom. But after my daughter was born, I had to take care of both her and Mr. Cumberbatch's other baby. At first I didn't mind. I loved them both. But then I saw
Then
how
I got
Mr.
a pillow.
Cumberbatch preferred his other daughter over mine. He
Aw.
spent more time with her and treated her so much better.
Goddamn right.
Every morning, he said to her, "Hey, sweetie, good morning. I love you so much." And then he completely ignored my daughter. I had to
Savage.
admit that she was the perfect child. Extremely beautiful and very smart. Much smarter than my daughter.
Yeah, no wonder this little lion maker wants to be around his favorite daughter. Fucking asshole.
At
Of
age
course.
2, she already spoke fluently. I often screamed at Mr. Cumberbatch, telling him to treat them equally, but he never did. At one
Ah.
point, I couldn't take it anymore.
Damn, lost focus, life over.
I went to a lawyer and asked him how much the father of my child had to pay me in child support on a $40,000 teacher salary. He told me to
Haha, you're
expect at
poor.
least $1,000 per month. That was a good amount, but I knew I could do better. So I went to Mr. Cumberbatch and said, "I will move out, but I expect you to pay me $2,000 in child support each month."
Maybe you think that I'm a gold digger, but
Of course, he told me he didn't have enough money to do that. But I continued.
Because he doesn't.
If you don't, you will go to prison just like your wife. You are insane.
Savage.
All you women are insane,
Let's blow those whining women back to the Dark Ages right where they belong!
he said. But I didn't
Speaking
care.
of which, that
I told
19-year
him to
looking
get a
fly.
second job, and we figured he could tutor kids to afford the $2,500 in child support. Meanwhile, I moved back in with my parents, and life became much easier for me.
Sorry for interrupting the fake video, but I really just needed to ask. How are the parents cool with any of this? Their 19-year-old daughter has already had sex, got pregnant, and has already started manipulating a despicable man and his daughter's money. This girl is basically Super Hitler.
Right now, my mom takes care of my daughter while I'm going to college. With the $2,500
Slut.
Mr. Cumberbatch sends me each month, I have enough money to feed my daughter and party through the weekends. Trust
Whore.
me, I really enjoy my college life. But Mr. Cumberbatch had to move into a cheaper and smaller house. He couldn't afford his old rent anymore.
Ha ha ha, I bet he's homeless. What a loser.
I knew it was wrong, but for some reason, I deeply enjoyed seeing Mr. Cumberbatch suffer. A
Jesus
few months
Allah.
later, I checked his Facebook and saw he was back with Mrs. Cumberbatch. I was still envious of their daughter. I didn't think they deserved such a perfect child.
Well, if you want somebody who's perfect, you can have, someone like me.
So one night, after I came back from a college party, I did something terrible. I put a bunch of photos of me holding Mrs. Cumberbatch's daughter on a USB stick, put it in an envelope, and sent it to their new home.
Ratchet.
I wanted to let Mrs. Cumberbatch know that her husband and I had been living together while she was in prison. I'd hoped she'd get angry and break into my house so the police could arrest her again. But this time nothing happened.
What the
And
Jotaro?
instead of giving up, I took it one step further. When it was time to receive my next child support check, I went to their home to pick it up personally. Mrs. Cumberbatch opened the door looking shocked to see me. I said, I want to pick up my child support check in person. She said, "What are you talking about?" And I responded, "Your husband didn't tell you? He pays me $2,000 per month in child support so I can take care of my daughter." I saw she was getting angry.
Oh,
And
God.
then her daughter came to the door and saw me. She
Aw.
immediately started screaming out of joy and ran up to me. Her mother said, "Don't touch her." But I didn't care. I picked her up and said, "Oh, there's my
You're
baby.
mine now."
Mama is back now." Her mother took her out of my arms and screamed at me, "You dirty little girl! All you do is destroy happy families!"
Hey, that's not true. I also destroy miserable ones as well.
I responded,
She's not wrong.
"If you're such a happy family, why didn't your husband tell you he's paying another girl $2,000 a month in child support? And where is he anyway? I'm
Damn.
sure he wants to sleep with me again."
Oh,
She
God.
responded, "You better not come here again, or it will be your last time." And
That's
I said,
reasonable.
"You better be careful your husband doesn't get another girl pregnant." He really
Damn.
doesn't care about you. That's when she suddenly ran into her apartment. I was afraid she was getting a knife, so I quickly got out of there ASAP.
Yeah.
But on my way home, I felt weird. Like I had done something wrong.
Because you
It
did.
seemed that Mrs. Cumberbatch had matured and was really trying her best to make things work. Meanwhile, I was the one trying to destroy their family and making everyone miserable. I knew I'd messed up, and that's why I decided not to bother them anymore. I still receive my
Didn't
child support
apologize?
checks, but now I fully focus on my daughter and on college.
Hey, if you made it this far, I just want to say thank you, and a little reminder, please don't say and hate to these guys. They're just trying their best, despite how pathetic it is, and how terrible the stories are, and how the people in these stories are even worse. But I just wanted to say thanks. Peace.